Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Merci tout le monde. Thank you, first of all, Jason, for that kind introduction and also for the work you've been doing. I know Jason has been a very passionate advocate of the initiative we're announcing today. Thank you as well to our Master of Ceremonies today, your host, our host, because he's the Member of Parliament for this area, the Honourable Julian Fantino, who's been a great addition to our team in Ottawa. I also want to, I know they were all mentioned, I also want to thank all of my colleagues from both Houses of Parliament who have come to be here with us today for this very important announcement. Special greetings to Member of Parliament Bev Shipley, who moved the motion in the House of Commons to get a vote to establish the Office of Religious Freedom. And thank you as well to our hosts here today, National General Secretary Dr. Aslam Daud and National President Lalkan Malik of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jama'at Canada. Thank you. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to start today by expressing my gratitude, to join with Jason in expressing my gratitude to the Ahmadiyya Muslim community here in Vaughan. I'm grateful for your generous hospitality, but even more, I'm grateful for the outstanding example that you set. Cette communauté, la communauté musulmane Ahmadiyya, connaît la cruauté terrible de la persécution fondée sur la religion. Malgré cela, vous continuez de croire en la tolérance et l'harmonie. En ce sens, votre contribution aux valeurs canadiennes est inspirante. This community has experienced, as Jason mentioned, terrible cruelty of persecution on the basis of religion. In spite of that, your belief in tolerance and harmony endures. In this, you make an inspiring contribution to our values. You strengthen Canada's commitment to diversity and pluralism, and you remind your fellow Canadians that the freedoms we enjoy are precious and must never be taken for granted. So as your Prime Minister, I thank you on behalf of all Canadians for strengthening and enriching the fabric of our country. Chers amis, dans plusieurs régions du monde, les violations de la liberté religieuse sont répandues et de plus en plus courantes. Around the world, violations of religious freedom are widespread, and they are increasing. In Iran, Baha'is and Christians face harassment, imprisonment, and in some cases, death. In Pakistan, Ahmadiyya Muslims, Shia Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, and Hindus are vulnerable to persecution and violence. In China, Christians who worship outside government-approved boundaries are driven underground, and their leaders are arrested and detained. While Uyghur Muslims, Tibetan Buddhists, and Falun Gong practitioners are subject to repression and intimidation. Elsewhere, we watch in horror as sanctuaries are destroyed and believers are attacked and in some cases slaughtered. Shia Muslim pilgrims in Iraq, Coptic Christians in Egypt, Christians that worship in Nigeria. The list appallingly goes on and on. In the face of these injustices and atrocities, Canada will not be silent. Indeed, Canada has not been silent. Sous notre gouvernement, le Canada s'est prononcé de façon constante et catégorique, sans crainte et sans attendre de faveur, pour la défense des droits de la personne partout dans le monde, et particulièrement pour la défense de la liberté religieuse. Under our government, Canada has spoken out consistently and emphatically, without fear or favor. Canada defends human rights around the world. And we have not only spoken out, we have also taken action. Nous avons rallié le soutien de plusieurs leaders mondiaux envers la cause de la liberté religieuse, notamment au G8, au Commonwealth, et à la francophonie. And we have rallied support for religious freedom, for example, among the leaders of the G8, of the Commonwealth, and at the Francophonie. And we are also providing safe haven in Canada for some 20,000 Iraqi refugees, many of whom are Chaldean Catholics driven from their ancient homeland under the threat of death. Mais nous devons en faire davantage, car les infractions commises à l'égard de ce droit fondamental sont graves et nombreuses. But we are compelled to do more by the sheer number and gravity of the offenses against this fundamental right around the world, and the assault it implies on democracy itself. The cause is just, the need is urgent, and our responsibility is clear. As Canadians, as citizens of a free country, we have a solemn duty. As Sir Wilfrid Laurier once said, and I quote, we should always remember this, Le Canada est libre et la liberté c'est sa nationalité. Canada is free and freedom is its nationality. Ladies and gentlemen, the freedom to worship according to one's own conscience is at the root of our personalities and therefore at the root of all of our liberties. That is why I'm deeply honored to be here today in a place where those once persecuted can now freely worship, in this country whose hallmark is tolerance of diversity and respect for human dignity. J'ai le grand honneur, mesdames et messieurs, d'annoncer l'établissement officiel du Bureau de la liberté religieuse du Canada et de son premier ambassadeur. I'm deeply honored, ladies and gentlemen, to announce the official establishment of Canada's Office of Religious Freedom. Thank you very much. I'm also further delighted to be able to announce Canada's first ambassador of religious freedom. He is a scholar, a man of principle and deep convictions. Please welcome everybody, Dr. Andrew Bennett. To be housed in the Department of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Bennett will monitor religious freedom around the world. He will promote it as a key objective of Canadian foreign policy. And Dr. Bennett will help ensure that the protection of religious freedom informs the policies and programs of the Government of Canada. Dr. Bennett, you have my best wishes and full support as you set forth on this most important mission. Ladies and gentlemen, I know that this audience requires no convincing on the need for action in defense of religious freedom. But there are some who, while generally supportive, would not have thought to make it a priority. And there are a few who may believe this is of interest to only a limited number of Canadians and the communities most affected. Let me address this directly. Notre gouvernement reconnaît les liens cruciaux et historiques entre le respect du pluralisme religieux et le développement même de la démocratie. C'est pourquoi nous allons continuer à nous faire un champion de la liberté de conscience et de religion dans le monde entier. There is a crucial and historical link between respect for religious pluralism and the development of democracy itself. And today, as many centuries ago, democracy cannot find fertile ground in any society where notions of the freedom of personal conscience and faith are not permitted. Former Prime Minister John Diefenbaker, who was one of the greatest human rights champions in our history, noted these realities when he introduced his original Canadian Bill of Rights. So I want to remind you what he said. Je suis Canadien, libre de m'exprimer sans crainte, libre de vénérer Dieu à ma façon, libre de défendre la cause qui me semble juste, libre de m'élever contre ce qui me semble mal,
libre de choisir qui gouvernera mon pays. Je m'engage à poursuivre cette tradition de liberté pour moi-même et pour toute l'humanité. I am a Canadian, a free Canadian, free to speak without fear, free to worship God in my own way, free to stand for what I think is right, free to oppose what I believe wrong, free to choose those who shall govern my country. This heritage of freedom I pledge to uphold for myself and all mankind. Indeed, it is this heritage of freedom that Prime Minister Diefenbaker spoke of that has drawn so many millions to our great country. And it has been in defense of this heritage of freedom that so many Canadians have given their lives in so many struggles against tyranny and oppression around the world. Au fil de l'histoire, comme à notre époque, les gouvernements qui violent la liberté religieuse tendent également à s'immiscer dans tous les autres aspects de la vie. Throughout history, and in our own day, governments that violate religious freedom are also prone to impose themselves in every other sphere of life. In contrast, the great tradition of which Canada is a leading example is founded on the recognition of what Prime Minister Diefenbaker called the sacred personality of man. It is the tradition of limited government under the rule of law, a government limited by its profound respect for the inviolable dignity of the human person, and thus limited, a government dedicated to promoting the freedom and prosperity of the people it serves. Our government is dedicated to this purpose, and we will work with other countries and all peoples of goodwill to promote the principles we share. En terminant, mesdames et messieurs, je tiens à vous parler d'une rencontre personnelle. In closing, ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you a little bit about a personal encounter I had, one that speaks to the fundamental importance of our initiative today. I'm privileged in the course of my service as Prime Minister to encounter many extraordinary individuals. And from time to time, even among all of these extraordinary people, someone is exceptional. One such person I met in my office on Parliament Hill in 2011. He was the Minister of Minorities of Pakistan, Shahbaz Bhatti. Shahbaz Bhatti a travaillé inlassablement à défendre les plus vulnérables, non seulement les autres chrétiens, mais aussi les hindous, les sikhs, les musulmans ahmadistes et toutes les autres minorités. He worked tirelessly to defend the vulnerable, not only his fellow Christians, but also Hindus, Sikhs, Ahmadi Muslims, and all other minorities. He did so knowing that it placed him under a constant and imminent threat to his life. He was an honorable and humble man. Shahbaz and I discussed the threats faced by religious minorities and the need for Canada to do more. Seulement 3 semaines après, en se rendant travailler à Islamabad, Shahbaz Bhatti a été assassiné. Only 3 weeks later, while traveling to work in Islamabad, Shahbaz Bhatti was assassinated. Those of us who met him, and certainly his family and friends, will continue to mourn his loss. But his legacy is, I believe, a legacy of hope. Hope for those who are persecuted for their faith. Hope for those who believe we can make a difference. Hope that if there is goodness enough to inspire one man to speak out, even in the most harrowing of circumstances, there is goodness enough to inspire all of us to do our part. Contrairement à celui de Shahbaz, le nom de la plupart des innombrables hommes et femmes qui font l'objet de persécutions religieuses nous est inconnu. Nous nous tenons à le dire, le Canada ne les oubliera pas. Si on le réduit au silence, nous prendrons la parole en leur nom. Unlike Shahbaz, most of the countless men and women who are persecuted for their faith are not known to us by name. But to them we say, Canada will not forget you. When you are silenced, we will speak out. We will use our freedom to plead for yours. And we will not rest until the day you can exercise fully and without fear
your birthright as members of the human family. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.